apologized to the family for the last-minute nature of this plea hearing. Watch.
I want to offer my apologies to all the families, including the victims' families, families of the defendant, for the short notice for today's hearing, and I'm sure what must have been the hurried efforts to get here. I, like most everyone else, learned of this plea agreement Monday afternoon.
And of course, after the family scrambled to be here in Boise, Idaho, emotions ran high inside the courtroom. The family members of Ethan Chapin and Kaylee Gonsalves visibly wept and wiped tears as the names of their loved ones were said by the judge, and Kohberger admitted to murdering them. On the front row, Maddie Mogen's father, he visibly squirmed and shifted in his seat. He looked like he was furious and holding back tears as if he wanted to jump over and say something to Kohberger himself. Now, the father of Kaylee Gonsalves refused to be inside the courtroom in protest. He said that this is something Kaylee, his daughter, would have been ashamed of. Watch.
It wasn't our deal. He never negotiated with us. We were never given any terms whatsoever. He negotiated with the devil, so he has to sleep with the devil, and that's his deal. I don't want anything to do with him.
Meaning the defendant. The devil meaning the defendant.
And the deal made by the prosecutor with the defendant, making the deal with the devil there is what they meant. And sentencing now has been set after this change of plea. It's set for July 23rd. The family of Kaylee Gonsalves, Steve, will be in the courtroom for that. I'm sure he's going to be prepared to look Kohberger in the eye and say exactly what he wants to tell him on that day, as well as other family members. And like I said, Kohberger himself, if he wants to, would be able to speak as well, guys.
You know, Chandler, the prosecutor, and he's actually the elected prosecutor as well for the town, went through some of the evidence after the plea agreement had already been put in for Brian Kohberger to accept. That seemed counterproductive, irrelevant at that point. Why did he do that?
It's part of the formal process for a change of plea or a plea agreement type of hearing, Lawrence. That's a great question. Basically, all the prosecutor had to do was outline a proffer, which is here's the basic evidence we would have proven if we had gone to trial, and this supports why he's pleading guilty today. Someone can't just walk into court and say, I did something, I'm guilty of something, without any sort of corroborating evidence behind it. So this was a formal process. That's why it was a little cut and dry from the prosecutor. He looked down most of the time reading his script. We really didn't learn anything new that we didn't know already from the overwhelming evidence against Brian Kohberger in this case. But what was notable, Lawrence, is that towards the end of this proffer from the prosecutor, he choked up. He had to actually pause at one point, take a sip of water, and then as he listed the names of all four of the victims one last time, he started to choke up and cry as before he sat down. I mean, we can say what we want. He didn't take this to trial. That was his decision to make, but he did spend 3 years on this case.
Yeah, he did talk about some of the facts and some of the things that they knew and went through the timeline. It's interesting, and I hope that we hear this from Kohberger during the sentencing. Why did he choose some of the women and not some of the others? Did the DoorDash person make eye contact with him? And did the person who got the food that night, were they a victim? And I think that's been answered. I don't remember. Maybe you can answer that. But I want to know how he knew who lived in which bedroom. Did he map out the house? And why? Why did he go after them?
Yeah. All of these questions could have been answered in about a month from now if this had gone to trial, which is why the victims' family members are so frustrated at this point. Those will be questions we may never know the answer to, Ainsley. But what we do know from what the prosecutor said yesterday is that this defendant, this murderer, was at this home, or his cell phone was pinging at this home 23 times in the months leading up to these murders. They can't say how he knew these victims or if he actually made contact with the victims at any time before, but they can say he stalked them multiple times. So he knew. And Lawrence, I know you've been to this house. You can see through those windows. Yeah. You can see where the rooms are in this home. You could park right in the back of the home because it's a multi-leveled home, and you can see straight into Madison Mogen's bedroom from there if you want to park there any time of day or night. So that's how this defendant was able to stalk out his victims. He knew when they arrived that night. And then we did learn, Ainsley, that the prosecutors don't know if he intended only one victim or multiple victims. They can't say, but what they do guess based on the blood evidence and where the bodies were found inside the house, that he first went to Madison Mogan and then Kaylee, who he probably didn't expect would be in the same room with her at the time. And then Xana, as you said, she had just ordered DoorDash and went to pick up her food, heard something, made her way towards Maddie's room when she encountered Brian Kohberger, who chased her down the stairs, back to her room, murdered her, and then Ethan, who was asleep, the prosecutor said he took him out in one swipe as well. It's very tragic. The other roommates, it doesn't explain why the other roommates are still alive, or even the DoorDash driver who did see him leave the home. There's so much information that we could have learned in a trial.
Real quick, we've got to go, but what assurances do we have as citizens that this guy will never be able to make any money, write a book or whatever, and make any money off of this case?